Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So, time I'm recording this, it is early October, and there are two movies that I watch every year, every October, as like my Halloween tradition movies, even though neither of them are scary. And one of those is The Phantom of the Opera, which I'll probably be watching tomorrow. Might do a review of the 2004 film. And the other is the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I mean, I haven't been doing that for like years. I've been doing that for maybe like 3 or 4 years in a row, just because I got it as a DVD. One of my older cousins was like giving us like a box of DVDs. We got to pick whatever we wanted, and I was super hyped because I'd wanted to watch this for a long time. So this is like my third or fourth year in a row watching the movie. I've never gone to see like an actual performance of it or anything, so I know it's one of those like cult classic things where it's like there's certain lines you say and things you do and stuff. I think that would be fun. Maybe I should look into it to see if there's like any in my area. And I know that it was one of the things with the DVDs, you can set it so like the subtitles will tell you like what lines you're supposed to say and stuff, but I just watch the movie normally, so that's kind of all I can really judge it from. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. I mean, this isn't like here's my thoughts as like a first viewing. This is like I've watched this like a couple of times now, but I feel like every year my opinion of it kind of changes. I don't know why. I mean, I always like it, otherwise I would not continue to watch it every year, because it's like the first time I watched it, I didn't really know what to expect, and this is one of those movies where it's like I wish I could erase it from my memory every year and like watch it for the first time again and again and not knowing what's going to happen, because it's so fun, honestly. But yeah, the first viewing, it's like I didn't really know anything about it and what to expect, and it was, it's a really weird movie. And then I think the next couple years or so I was like fine with it and whatever. I think I've just gotten used to it, because it's like it's a very sexual movie, and I think the first couple times I watched it, I was like, it was like a bit too much for me, but it's gotten to a point now where I'm like fine with it, or like mostly fine with it. I don't know. I usually still watch this when I'm like home alone when I'm watching this every year. Not that my parents like care or anything. I know that my dad's, I think both my parents have seen it, but they don't really care for it. But it is still like a little awkward watching some of the like more sexual scenes and stuff, and then someone's like there. I mean, it's one thing if you're like watching with a bunch of people who are like just as excited about the movie as you are, then it's like it's fine, it's fun. But when it's like someone like your parents, it's just kind of like, oh, okay. Especially because they don't really care for it too much. Like this year, like my parents were both out for the morning. We're like, okay, you're gonna have the house to yourself, Bumble. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna watch this movie. And then one of them got home early, and my mom was there while I was watching the movie, like in the same room. I think she was like eating, so it was a little awkward, especially because of course she comes at like when things start getting more sexual and stuff, and Janet's song about feeling dirty was on while she was there, and I didn't like turn around and look at her or anything. I was just on the couch looking at the TV, but I felt kind of embarrassed. Like, she was fine. She was like, you can keep watching a movie, I'll just be here, but it feels a little embarrassing, which is a bummer, and I didn't want to skip it either. Like, I knew, because I've seen it enough times where I like sort of know where all the songs are within the movie, and I knew where it was and when to like skip it and stuff, but it's such a catchy song that I didn't want to skip it. That's the thing, the soundtrack of this movie is great. And there's actually two versions on like I don't know if it's for like every DVD copy, where there's the US version and the UK version, and I never thought anything of it. Like, I was just watched the US version. I didn't know if there was a difference. Apparently there is, and I only realized that after I was done watching the movie, because I'd watched the US version, and then I was looking in the back of the DVD and I'm like, wait, there's a cut song. So then I restarted the movie, and I literally I didn't even use the scene selection. I like fast forwarded on like times 30 speed all the way till the end of the UK version, and I think the only difference, or at least that I'd noticed, is there's a cut song called Superheroes, and it's a good song and everything, but it's not even that long. It's like not even really a full song. It's like a couple of lines and then mostly like instrumental music. I think I could maybe understand why it was cut. It's like kind of a downer, and then that's the song you would end on, but it is really good. I really like the guitar in it. But that's still weird to me that it was like, you know, rather than cut from every version of the movie, it's like region locked basically. But it was there, you know, because I think what also kind of reminded me to watch this movie this year was I saw something of like, oh, it's on Disney Plus and Hulu now, and I have Hulu, and I thought, oh, I could watch it on there. But then I was reading how it doesn't have like all the material from the movie, like it just depends on the version. So I'm like, okay, well, my DVD has not let me down for the past 3 to 4 years, and that was fine. I needed an excuse to use my DVD player anyway. But other than that song, I don't know if there's any differences. But yeah, the soundtrack's really good. What are my favorites? Like, I used to have the opinion, actually, at least from memory, that like the songs for like the first half of the movie or so, or like up to the point when they eat Eddie, were like pretty good, and then after that I think I kind of was just losing interest in the movie and like the songs and stuff. I didn't feel like they were as good or like as memorable to me as I would continue watching. But then with this viewing, I feel like I've changed my mind where like everything was good. Let me see. Yeah, like science fiction double feature is really fun. That was one of the ones I remembered the lyrics to. Damn It, Janet's also really catchy. And it took me a couple viewings actually with that scene to notice that Riff Raff and Magenta and Frankenfurter are all there at the wedding scene, but they're all dressed up in like normal clothes, none of the makeup or anything. Or more like civilian clothes, I should say. And I think it's interesting that a couple of them are dressed as the American Gothic painting. I thought that was pretty cool, especially because they're in like a church setting. And then later on, when we finally get to the castle, I think I knew already about the American Gothic thing from like the last time I watched, but this time I watched, and it's so obvious too that the painting is just there in the castle, especially because it's sort of colorful compared to like all the like Gothic furniture and stuff. There's probably more symbolism with it, but I think that's a pretty cool detail. Or yeah, during the song Damn It, Janet, I noticed the sign in the background that says Denton, Home of Happiness, or whatever, the way it's framed, where it's like this big heart between Brad and Janet, which reminded me, actually, there's a sequel to this movie. I found out about it a couple years ago called Shock Treatment. I might do a video of that, because I'd seen it before, like a couple years ago. I remember I was so excited and I was like, oh cool, there's a sequel. It's been like free on YouTube for years. But I remember watching it, and with that movie, I recommend not going into it with the expectation of it being like Rocky Horror 2, because it's not like really a sequel. I don't really remember it too clearly is the thing. It's just like it has like the same characters, but most of them are played by different actors, and it's like a different setting and everything. I've heard a way to describe it is like an alternate universe of like, what if Brad and Janet didn't get the flat tire and ended up having the whole adventure at the castle and stuff. So it's kind of treated as more of like an equal rather than a sequel, but it has like such a different vibe. It doesn't really feel as much as a musical. Anyway, I found it on YouTube already. I started watching a little bit of it, but I thought, okay, I want to do the review for this movie first, so that way I don't have like the sequel in my head, because otherwise I feel like I would just start comparing the two and stuff. So I might do that, watch that, record a review after this video. But for now, this is just about Rocky Horror. I just wanted to mention about that really quick. Let's see. Yeah, Over at the Frankenstein Place is also really good. I really like, I don't know if she like usually sings and stuff, Susan Sarandon's vocals in this movie. Like she's able to sing so like high pitched and stuff, and I remember the first couple times I watched the movie I found it like kind of annoying, but this time I'm like used to it, and she actually sings like really well. Like, I don't know how many people in this are like, you know, professional, like actual singers and everything. Like, I know Richard O'Brien is, because he's the one that like made the musical and apparently did the music for Shock Treatment as well, so that's gonna be pretty cool to see. And then Tim Curry, I know, also has like singing experience. I actually had just seen, I'd found it on YouTube, the what is it called, Spam-A-Lot musical. I don't remember if I did a review of that either, but that one's really good, where he, in the one that I watched, played King Arthur. But out of like every movie I've seen Tim Curry in, his role in this movie is just easily my favorite. Like, the costumes and stuff are so oh yeah, I have to talk about the costumes at some point. I just really like his makeup in this too, especially like later on in the movie where he has this really bright, like kind of shiny blue eyeshadow. It just looks so good. But like, whenever I think of like Tim Curry's characters, and there's a lot that I like in Muppet Treasure Island, he just feels like he's one of the Muppets, so it's kind of fun there. Clue. Oh, Clue's another one. I think that could technically count for like a Halloween movie. I should like track that down again. Where I think he's like the butler or something in Clue. I know he's in Home Alone too, but he just has so much like screen presence here. I don't know if that's like the right phrase, of like really commanding your attention with this like over the top mad scientist character and stuff. I want to go through the songs first, actually, and then I want to talk about the characters and stuff. Time Warp, of course, is really iconic. I was so tempted. I was like getting into it. I almost got up from my seat and I wanted to do it along too. But I stayed on the couch. I was comfy, but it's like, there's just a lot of like really fun, catchy numbers with this. I think Time Warp is also in one of the Just Dance games, and I've been meaning to make a playlist actually, because I play the first like 3 or so of those games literally like every week as exercise on my Wii. That's the only thing I use the Wii for. It's just as like Just Dance exercise stuff. I've been wanting to make a playlist of like songs from other games so I can like follow along and just have it as like a thing on YouTube or something. Not that I'm gonna post, but like for me, considering putting Time Warp on there, it sounds cool. What else? Hot Patooey, Bless My Soul. I think that's the only song Meatloaf has in here, which is kind of a bummer because I know he's like an actual singer. That one's really catchy as well. Like, a lot of these are really good. Like, yeah, but like Hot Patooey and then Touch It, Touch It, Touch It, Touch Me are like the two catchiest that kept getting stuck in my head before this review. Sweet Transvestite's good. I feel like I've liked it more in the past. I don't know. I think it's okay. Same with I Can Make You a Man. I actually didn't know the titles of a lot of these. I'm like scrolling through Wikipedia right now. That's why I'm paused. I didn't know the one that they sing where it's about Eddie is literally just titled Eddie. Yeah, I think that's usually the point in the movie, like I mentioned on like previous viewings, where I kind of just start losing interest. Like, the movie remains good and stuff, but it just feels less like high energy and fun. But I've changed my mind on that. Like, it still gets pretty crazy. And then Roast in My World, I didn't realize that is technically like 3 different songs in one is how it's listed, because there's like the Floor Show one, and that one's really short where it's like a group number. I like the costumes for that one. It's pretty fun. Wild and Untamed Sting I actually completely forgot about. It's alright. And then Don't Dream It, the fanfare one, that's one of my favorites. I don't know why when it played this time I half expected it to be like the credit song or something. I think it would have worked cool as like something at the end of the movie, but I can see why it's in the placement, you know, of where it is. But that one's really cool. I like the scene with that. I think what kind of, because it's a very kind of like flowy song. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, where they're all in the pool and stuff and all kind of melding together. And I like that the pool has the, I don't know what the title of the painting is, but it's the one of God sticking the finger out and trying to touch Adam, which I'd also forgotten about, because there's the whole like creator and creation theme with this movie. It's basically like a really sexual Frankenstein movie. And then I'm Going Home. I think in the past I hadn't really cared for that one, but this time I really liked it because it's just like this kind of sad ballad, but it's like a really good song. And then Superheroes is at the end. I don't know if there's like a longer version of it or something. Like Wikipedia says it's like 2 minutes and 45 seconds, but I swear it was only like a couple of lines in the actual song, maybe like 3 or 4, and then it was just music. It's like a very short scene where they're all just on the ground and stuff. But yeah, a lot of the soundtrack's great. I need to add it to my musical playlist on Spotify. What else? I always found the beginning of this movie kind of boring, and I think that's probably supposed to be the point. It's just like setting up stuff about like Brad and Janet, like introducing them as characters and stuff, with like the wedding. And I keep thinking about that because now I'm watching Shock Treatment, where the town of Denton, you know, in like the beginning of this movie, it's you know, it's these like very conservative young people. I think it takes place in like the 50s or 60s, because I know there's like audio from Richard Nixon at one point in this movie. So I just assumed it was like early 60s or something, if I had to guess. You know, they have all these like very light colored kind of pastel clothes and everything, probably also because they're all, you know, dressed for a wedding and stuff. Like it's so chill. And then with Shock Treatment, it's like everyone's at this TV station and it's kind of nuts. So it's just kind of an interesting contrast. And I like how the church, it's used for a wedding, but then there's all this imagery of like funerals and stuff with like the way some of the other characters are dressed. There was one point where Magenta and Riff Raff are carrying a coffin, and I half expected, and it's in like the background while Brad and Janet are singing or something, and I half expected someone to like pop out of the coffin. I'm like, are they smuggling someone out of here? I'm still curious about that, because you know, the getting the flat tire and then ending up in the castles just seems like it's kind of a coincidence. And then with Frank later thinking that Brad and Janet are like spies for Dr. Scott or whatever. But I mean, if they start showing up even at the wedding scene, like they're targeting these people, and I feel like the movie doesn't really explain it. I felt kind of confused. I mean, I'm assuming that's why they were kind of really welcoming of like, yeah, we're gonna let these people join our party and see the unveiling of the creation and stuff. It's interesting. I don't know. I really like the lighting with this movie too. Like I keep thinking about how Over the Frankenstein Place takes place where they're like in the storm, everyone actually looks like wet and stuff. I mean, obviously like the lightning effect isn't real and stuff, but it really just has that like kind of spooky environment vibe without being like scary or anything. I thought that was cool. And it's funny with Time Warp. I know I'm saying song titles to like reference like where scenes are in the movie, but I feel like that's easier than being like, oh, this is the scene where ba 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 happens, or like faster. But yeah, with Time Warp, it's kind of funny to me because the whole thing with this movie is like Brad and Janet start so like innocent and whatever, and then eventually they have this like sexual freedom, but like towards the beginning of the movie they're like really uncomfortable with everything that's happening, and like Janet faints a couple times, which I laughed at because like she sees the people at the party doing the time warp and is thinking that it's like all this craziness and whatever, but like their outfits are so normal. It looks like stuff you would dress for like like not even a real party. I don't know how to describe it. From what I remember, it's like just these glasses and little like party props and hats or whatever. It almost just looks very like costumey, like a costume party more than anything else. Like not anything like dressed super weird or like insanely colorful or whatever, because I mean they only get to the more like extreme outfits and stuff or more like glamorous once they get to the actual cast. Like if it had started out with outfits like that, I'd understand why Janet was like so freaked out, but like the stuff that the people wearing at the party is like really tame. I'm like, is it that much of a shock for the time period or something? But yeah, that makes Time Warp kind of more funny, and that's probably like supposed to be the point of it too, but it is really just like a fun scene and everything. And then it's kind of a little sad that like all of those people end up leaving the party and stuff, or just leaving the castle, and then it's just kind of the main characters and that's it, which is fine because like they get their own development. It's just it's kind of like Clue in a sense of like all these people are trapped in this house and stuff, and there's not really like one singular main character, I guess. And I really like the camera work in this movie as well. Like there's a couple of scenes where it's like the POV of Brad and Janet. I think like when they first go to the laboratory, and Frank is talking like directly into the camera and stuff, it kind of makes it a little more spooky. Or I really like the chase scene where he's chasing around Eddie, and like there's a couple of them. Like there's one where he's chasing around Eddie, there's one where he's chasing around Rocky. There's the one where Eddie's on the motorcycle and it's scaring the crap out of all the guests and stuff, and the way the camera is like a first person POV and then like over the shoulder, and it really just makes you feel like you're kind of involved in these little chases and stuff too. Like it's a cool room in general, especially with those like statues and stuff. And I didn't remember that eventually the other characters become statues too. I just thought, oh, okay, cool. There's like these statues here. It's kind of weird. They're in this like science lab. It doesn't even really look like a lab either. It's like this very empty room with like a couple of equipment things on the wall. That's kind of about it. It kind of looks more like it'd be used as like a stage or something. That's the other thing I like with this movie. There's like a lot of weird rooms and stuff. Like the Gothic bridal suite is really cool, and that's like its own little room. Or the room they have dinner in always feels kind of a little spooky to me because I think the walls and the floor are just completely black. It's like dark in there. And I noticed this time they have all these like, because I was paying more attention to the props and things too, that some of the characters at the dinner get like normal glasses, but then all the guests get like these just random cups and whatever, which is like one of the only like kind of somewhat normal things in this movie of like, you know, when you have guests and you give them just the whatever cups and stuff. Or I ended up pausing the movie when we saw Magenta and Columbia's room, and there's so many little details and things in there. I kind of wish we got to see it more often. I liked the design of it. Like there's this couch where they're sitting at, and let's see, there was a lot of like paintings and artwork of women. There was one that was like a pinup girl sort of thing, or maybe not a pinup girl, where there's this woman who's lying on a beach with like her legs up and stuff. And I don't know how I completely forgot about it, but there's an entire wall of that room that's just this gigantic picture of Eddie. And I was wondering about that because we only see it a little bit before, you know, he gets consumed and stuff. And I was wondering, is that like a photo on the wall? Who is that? And then you see it later when Columbia is crying. Or wait, did I get them mixed? I feel like I always get them mixed up because one of them is like one of the servants and the other is a groupie. Let me Okay, yeah, Columbia is the one that's the groupie. She's actually my favorite. She just seems so fun, and she's kind of an interesting character. Because sometimes it's like she's totally on board with whatever madness is happening, and she lives there and everything. Pretty sure she's like roommates with Magenta because they were always in that room and stuff. But then sometimes I forget she's not one of the aliens and that she's just a human who's like hanging out there and stuff. So then she does have like normal reactions to things too, especially when it's like stuff concerning Eddie. Like that's kind of like her breaking point when she realizes that they're eating him, and then she runs off and like cries about it and stuff. I felt kind of bad for her at the end, because I remembered that she ended up getting like blasted by the laser. I misremembered it entirely of like I thought she would take the blow for Frank, but instead she just squeals and then gets shot anyway and dies. And I feel like she didn't deserve to die, that she should have been able to like escape with the others and stuff. Actually, I don't even think that Rocky deserved to die either. I forgot about that too. Because he only got to exist for like 7 hours, because it's like Frankenstein, he gets brought to life. He didn't ask for this. Like he immediately comes to life, and his creator is like already and instantly like super horny for him, and he seems kind of freaked out. And I think it's interesting with Rocky as a character where he doesn't really seem to be able to talk or anything, but then I guess because it's also kind of like fantasy sequences or whatever, he's able to sing just fine, and then you get like his actual thoughts, and then he sort of ends up getting together with Janet, which I feel like, I don't know if it was because he was also sexually interested in her, or if it was just like, oh, this is the only person that's been nice to me and stuff. So I just felt really bad for him as a character. Like Frank doesn't really treat him well or anything, and then when he dies, Rocky like seems super upset about it and carries his corpse, and it kind of reminded me of like King Kong climbing the buildings and stuff, with trying to climb the like radio tower thing, and then they both fall in the pool, and die. So I feel like those two didn't deserve it. I don't know for Frankenfurter, honestly. I mean, I do think he definitely deserved to be punished in some way, because he literally killed Eddie. Like he kills people and stuff, and that's bad, of course. But I like the way that Columbia sums it up, where she says how Frank just uses people and hurts them and then kind of tosses them away, like her becoming a groupie, and then being tossed aside for Eddie, and then Eddie being tossed aside for Rocky. Like it's never enough for Frank, and then people still keep hanging around, but he keeps like hurting them. But then I still keep thinking of that song of like I'm Going Home, and how sad it's like. It's kind of hard not to feel bad for him with that, like I feel like if he got taken to Transylvania as like the prisoner, like he assumed Riff Raff was saying, I feel like that would have been enough punishment. I don't see why he needed to get like killed or whatever. I mean, I'm assuming he was being punished in the first place for committing murder. I don't know if that's like legal on their planet or whatever. I feel like maybe there was more to it. I don't know, maybe it's like context clues I'm missing. And I'm still thinking with that scene too, when Riff Raff kills everyone else, and Magenta's like, why did you do that? They, those people liked you or whatever. And then he yells out like, they didn't like me, they never liked me. And I still keep thinking about that, because for the most part his character, is kind of this like Igor type who like follows his master and speaks this kind of like very monotone voice, which is kind of funny. It kind of surprised me like the first time I watched the movie, and I'm like, oh, he's like this servant character or whatever, and it gets to his specific verse in time warp, and then he sounds completely different, and it's like, whoa. But I think he's interesting as a character. I'm just wondering about that line, especially because I noticed it looked like he was almost crying during that too, where I'm like, I mean, he does end up at least letting Dr. Scott go, which was also kind of funny scene to me, where he's like, yeah, you did the right thing, and everyone goes to look at him, and he's not even really upset about his nephew being murdered. He literally says something of like, oh, it was probably the right thing to do or for the best, and I'm like, dude, that's your nephew. He didn't need to like die or whatever. You know, but he ends up letting the humans go, probably because, like, you know, Brad and Janet didn't do anything. They're just kind of there. I don't really know if Dr. Scott did anything either. But yeah, Riff Raff and Magenta are interesting characters. I was kind of paying attention to them more during this viewing. Like, I noticed that sometimes they do kind of get into it with things of like dancing around with everybody else or whatever, or kind of also there to have fun. And then there's other times where it looks like they just kind of roll their eyes at like putting up with Frank's bullshit or whatever, which I feel like is a good sort of foreshadowing of like they eventually decide to kill him and whatever. Like, they just want to go home. They don't want any of this stuff going on. And I forgot again that they're siblings, because, you know, I think that's an interesting reveal, because you see them like making out and stuff or acting kind of romantic or whatever throughout the movie, where you just kind of assume that they're like this weird couple, they're perfect for each other, and then you find out they're siblings and it's like, oh, okay, it's just like incest. So like they're fine with that, but they're not fine with like everything else Frank's been doing. I mean, unless they really are only punishing him for murder. I don't know. I think their outfits as like aliens and stuff are also kind of goofy. I hate Riff Raff's little like ponytail thing that like doesn't really have the physics of like a ponytail. It like sticks up into this weird C shape. I didn't really like it. I think their golden outfits with those big shoulder pad things are kind of goofy though. I mean, the whole movie seems, you know, even with the title song and stuff, excuse me, you know, like it's kind of making fun of like B horror movies. Sorry, saying B movie made me think of the B movie, but no, you know, that whole song about talking about Forbidden Planet and Flash Gordon and like androids fighting and stuff. So I feel like having those types of costumes worked with that well. I liked that Magenta in like the alien costume and stuff had the like Bride of Frankenstein hair with the iconic like white streaks and everything. I thought that was pretty cool, especially because I literally just watched Bride of Frankenstein yesterday in Tubi, which I'm not going to do a review of that, but I am a little disappointed with it because it's called Bride of Frankenstein and you don't get to see the bride, you know, the way she normally looks and stuff with that hair and everything until literally the last freaking 4 minutes of the movie, and then she hates the creature and screams at him and rejects him, and then he kills everybody. Or actually no, he lets some of the people go, but himself and the bride, and it's like, dude, what? I was a little disappointed with that movie, but anyway, you know, it's nice watching it, and like I've seen that hairstyle, you know, it's always a reference specifically to her in like a dozen other movies or whatever. So that was cool to see. I've just kind of had Frankenstein on the brain lately. I still haven't gotten to see the original movie. I can't find it anywhere, but since it's Halloween, I might watch Young Frankenstein. That one I grew up with. That one's pretty fun. So that might be a thing on here. But yeah, anyway, their costumes are cool. I love all the costumes in this movie. Like Frank's, you know, that's on the cover of this, I think is really fun. I already mentioned about the makeup that I really like. and like the gloves and everything, and those like stilettos have like a good amount of heel too. Like I was thinking about that during the scene where he chases around Rocky, and I noticed there's a couple times where the camera shows Frank and he like falls over. I feel like that wasn't an accident. I feel like that was probably on purpose, or it seemed purposeful with those movements, where he like gets up and then goes again. And I can say from personal experience, like I don't really wear heels because they're kind of a pain in the ass to walk in. You really have to keep your balance, so I can't imagine like running around like that in heels and not falling over, on accident or whatever. So like props to him, but it's a cool outfit. I like the gloves and everything too, and the pearl necklace. I like how the pearl necklace stays on for the like doctor outfit, that like green weird smock or whatever. And then Columbia's outfit, because she has two of them. There's that like really gold super sparkly outfit with the little hat and the tuxedo and stuff. That one's my favorite. I think it's really fun. It's so like flashy and I love the way she's introduced to, where she sits on top of the jukebox and then finally gets her line with Time Warp. And then later on in the movie, she ends up changing. And I saw the clothes in the background in the room, too. They're, like, hanging up somewhere. Where her other outfit is so, like, casual and stuff. Where it's just this, like, t-shirt or something. Or this, like, open shirt. Kind of looked like a men's shirt, actually. And then, for some reason, this, like, Mickey Mouse hat. Not, like, the ears or anything. Like how a lot of people have the ears headbands. But it's one of those, like, big plastic Mickey Mouse hats that has the ears in it. That felt like such a random choice, but I find that really funny, but still I feel like kind of fits with the character of like this fun little hat, to where I feel like I like her haircut and everything. I like hair that short, but I feel like the hat, her with hats, just kind of like works, What else? Riff Raff's outfit's cool too. I don't really completely remember it that well. I think it was like a white shirt, and then he has the hunchback thing or whatever. Kind of makes him look more spooky because he's kind of like this Igor type character or whatever. And then Magenta just has like the maid's outfit and stuff, which also works. And then Brad's I thought was just okay. Janet, I like her outfit, like from the beginning with the wedding scene and stuff. Kind of reminds me of something like a grandmother would wear, actually. But I know this is supposed to be like a movie that takes place in like the 50s, 60s, whatever. So then I was kind of bummed, but like I get how it works for the story of like their clothes. Brad and Janet's are like literally taken away from them when they get to the castle, because it's this whole theme of like innocence and losing that innocence and like sexual identity and stuff. Because this is a movie from like the 70s. Feels like it's from the 70s. I feel like it's either 70s or 80s. No, because Shock Treatment's from the 80s. Yeah, I believe this is from 1975. That sounds about right, actually. 1975, because in the sequel it's from the 80s and stuff. What else? Because I'll keep watching this movie again every year, but I'm not gonna make another video on it again, so I'm like, okay, I need to like get everything out of my head. The iconic red lips, I always wondered, I know I can just Google it, but I'm gonna say it anyway, like who those belong to. Like I feel like in universe it's probably supposed to be Frank. And I think that's just such an interesting way to start out the movie, and like to do an opening credits thing where it's just this black background and then this mouth. Like it's weird where it's like, it's just a mouth, and normally you'd think like, oh, that might be kind of gross, or like you have a close-up of someone's teeth, but it's like, I don't know if it's the lipstick or because you can just see the way the mouth moves, but it works. It's hot. I really like that shade of red for the lipstick, actually. I think it looks so cool. Because I think there's other characters that have red lipstick as well. It just like pops so much, especially because there's times where like the characters will give this like really sexual look to the camera. Like I know there's a couple of times that happens, I think, with like Magenta and Columbia. Like I still keep thinking about with Columbia when she during Sweet Transvestite, where she's like right there by Frank's leg, and she does this, there's this one part where the camera's on her where she like licks her lips or whatever and gets like really into it. or I think Magenta has a similar thing during Time Warp when she has her verse where she like stares down the camera. So there's just like little, you know, details like that and stuff that just works so well with this movie, where it's like sexual and fun, but even when characters are like literally fucking each other and stuff, it never feels like it's too much. There's like kind of a fine line there, and I appreciate that. I think that's cool. Where everyone's just so like free to be themselves and their identities and stuff. You know, I feel like that best comes across with like Time Warp. Like everyone's wearing these fun outfits and there to have a good time, and they're all like making out with each other and stuff until it ends up, you know, like where Brad and Janet, you know, the scene where Frank goes to find both of them in the bedroom. I think it's interesting how he literally has the exact same dialogue with both of them, and they both respond in like different ways, where they're at first like kind of disgusted or something, and then they're like, hey, you won't tell my partner, right? And he's like, no, we're good. And then they both get into it and stuff, and then, you know, at the end when they're all in the pool and everyone's like making out with each other and stuff, and they seem so, you know, excited about it. Like I always wondered what the point of the floor show was. I used to think like, oh, it's just kind of there or whatever, it's like Frank's punishment to them, you know, if things starting to go off the rails. But I think it's also interesting to show like the characters growth and stuff, especially with like Brad and Janet's lines about feeling like more free and stuff. I think that's pretty cool. And the ending's okay. I almost forgot to talk about the ending, which is different depending on like which version of the movie you're watching. As with the US version, it's that, you know, the castle goes back to the planet or whatever, and then Brad, Janet, and Dr. Scott. I forgot to talk about Dr. Scott, actually. Yeah. I need to do that as well. Anyway, they're left behind, and then that's it, and then the movie ends. I feel like that actually works fine as an ending. I don't think it needed another song. I can see why it was cut, but Superheroes is good. Yeah, where they're just left there, and I like that you don't see whatever else happens next to them or like next for them in like either version, where they're just there and it's like, what do you do after this situation? Because I feel like that's a good way to end it, of like you went through all this madness and then it's just kind of like, you know, they barely escaped with their lives. And then with the UK version, Superheroes is added, where they're all, you know, like on the floor. I like that the camera gets really spinny as well, and then there's this cool transition where it transitions to the footage of the globe. And I feel like with the criminologists dialogue and stuff, I feel like having Superheroes in there does flow a lot better, because it's like this song that's like really depressing, and then the transition to the globe happens, and then it's the same dialogue from the criminologist about oh shoot, why can't I even remember what it is, about how like insignificant the human race is. And I think that works, and it even has the music from Superheroes too. I think that works with like having the lyrics from Superheroes and then going to that dialogue, rather than like with the US version where you know, it's just them on the floor and then it cuts to that dialogue. I think if anything, it almost makes it more morbid to have that like sudden cut to like, okay, the movie's over now and they're just left there and whatever. I think for me, having that song in there just depends on like where you decide to stop watching. Like if you listen to the part with the criminologist, then having superheroes works, but then if you just stop the movie when they're all on the floor, I think it could just end that way, you know, and it could be fine. But I think that's interesting. I'm glad. I wish I'd looked it up because it was written on the back of my DVD of like, oh, the US and the UK version and superheroes is added. I thought that meant it was added to both versions. It didn't feel like it clearly stated like, oh, it's only in the UK version for some reason. You know, I had to like Google that, where I was like, why isn't superheroes here? But you know, I'm glad it's at least included in one of the versions if you have it on DVD. I don't know why they cut it for like the Hulu and Disney one, because it's a short song, but it's good. I feel like then that kind of makes it even flow better into Shock Treatment. If you view Shock Treatment as like, you know, they got like traumatized from all the stuff from Rocky Horror, and then Shock Treatment is about like they're married now, but their marriage is kind of failing, and it's like them processing their trauma and all these wacky things that happen. Yeah, I need to go and watch Shock Treatment. I feel like there's something I'm missing. Because I talked about the costumes, we talked about the songs, we talked about the characters. No, we didn't finish talking about the characters. Yeah, that's right. I talked about most of the staff and Frank, and let's see. I actually like the criminologist. Like, he doesn't have like a super big role. I like when he also gets into stuff like the time warp, and he's kind of there as like your sort of narrator character. I like that he doesn't actually pop up too many times, because I feel like otherwise that could be kind of disruptive. He's kind of just there more to give like comments about things, but some of his context helps. Like the map, there's a shot of the map of Denton, and it actually shows that Brad and Janet drove past Dr. Scott's house and then ended up at, you know, the castle. I feel like seeing that visually kind of makes more sense of like, why didn't they figure out they took a wrong turn or whatever. And then I already started watching a little bit of Shock Treatment, and his character is there. I don't remember if it's supposed to be the exact same character, but I think that's kind of cool they brought him back for that. And then Dr. Scott, I mentioned a couple times. I kind of keep forgetting he's a character. Like, he is important. I completely like, I remembered the characters are aliens, but I forgot his whole plot line of, besides being Eddie's uncle, like they reveal that he's German, and then from there he switched accents for the rest of the movie. And then I don't know why that was supposed to be like a big revelation, unless it was something to do with like the time period the movie was taking place in. But that he was working for the FBI and like trying to find out about aliens or whatever, but he doesn't seem like he's there. You know, he's just there to find out about Eddie. He's not there to like bust them for being aliens or whatever, or like to take them back to the government or anything. Because I forgot the whole thing where Frank just assumes like, yeah, you guys, Brad and Janet, are like spies, you know, working for Dr. Scott or whatever. But I don't know. I think because he doesn't really get like I mean, he does have a song. He has the song about Eddie and stuff, but I feel like he doesn't really stand out to me too much as his own character. Like the FBI stuff is interesting, but I feel like and it does escalate with the plot or whatever, and the reveal of like the characters really are aliens, but I feel like he's kind of forgettable as a character. Though I do like, you know, after he sings this whole song about Eddie's childhood and him not being a good person or whatever, and then there's the reveal of literally under the table, besides the fact they freaking eat a corpse, and I mean, obviously they're not eating a real person, but you know, it just looks like chicken and stuff, and then but you get the hints of like they're eating a person, and then you see the corpse under the table, and it's just like, whoa, you know. I do think it's interesting with the dinner scene, the way the guests are treated compared to everyone else. I mentioned the cup thing already. Like the way the wine is poured, it's poured out like really hastily and like gets on the table and stuff. Or that Columbia is given like a normal glass, and I think so is Rocky. I think Rocky's just given like a mason jar, and then the others, the three like other humans, are given just random cups or whatever, and then the servings of the meat. I mean, I couldn't tell how much Frank had. I assumed it was a lot, because there's like a giant piece of meat that's in the way of his plate. But then all the other no, Rocky ends up getting like a drumstick portion, because Frank was talking about protein earlier on in the movie, but I feel like that makes sense. And then all the other characters are given like the tiniest slice of meat, like the thinnest thing in the world, and it's like, bro, these are your guests. They're like barely giving them anything, you know. It reminds me of that one scene, I think it's in the Jack and the Beanstalk Mickey Mouse movie or something, where the characters have like one singular strip of meat that's so thin they can like literally see through it. So yeah, they're treated as like kind of shitty guests throughout the whole movie, and then Riff Raff and Magenta's whole thing of like causing mischief of stuff, like Rocky getting attacked by those dogs. I thought that was like a longer scene for some reason, but it's like a short bit, or spying on people with the monitors or whatever. I feel like all of that kind of definitely fits with them, like, you know, being aliens. Like they come off as so weird because they're trying to like blend in with the humans, but at the same time they're like a little bit more sadistic than everyone else. I think almost even more. I'd say almost more than Frank, but there's literally a scene where he has an axe or whatever. Or no, it's like an ice pick thing where he chases around Eddie. I thought that one was also well done, where it kind of reminds me of like the Psycho scene with the knife in the shower or whatever. And then Eddie ends up running back into the refrigeration thing, and Frank goes after him, and then you don't actually see Eddie get attacked. You just see this long, and I feel like it makes it scarier, if anything, this just long streak of blood going into that room, and Columbia screaming, and then Frank comes out and the pink gloves are covered in blood to show you like the aftermath. It just, I think framing it that way rather than seeing a body or any like actual violence, I think just makes it more brutal. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's pretty much my thoughts. I wanted to talk about this earlier, but I like to record when like I have some privacy and stuff. So then I was downloading a bunch of Itch.io games, so you might see more of that too. But yeah, this movie, banger soundtrack, all of them are really good. I like the actors. I think that's why Shock Treatment is kind of hard for me to get into. I would have liked if the actors from this movie, for Brad and Janet specifically, returned, because I'm just so used to watching this movie over and over, and they're like ingrained in my brain as though those two specific characters. So having people that kind of vaguely look like them but not really in Shock Treatment, I think throws me off. Yeah, I think it's just also weird having like a sequel to Rocky Horror, and you know, Frank's an iconic character that I feel like he's the one that really makes the movie work. Like if he wasn't there or whatever, if it wasn't like a Frankenstein story and the creation, you know, already existed and then everyone else was still there, I mean the movie would still work, but he just really ties it all together, you know. And like I said, it's easily my favorite of like Tim Curry's roles. I love the ones where he just gets to be like so over the top and everything. I think it's really fun. The supporting cast is also good. This is also kind of the movie I associate Susan Sarandon with as well. Like I'll see her in other things, but I always just kind of remember her as Janet. I wonder if there's anything else that she sings in though, because she sings really well. I'm like interested to find out. And then everyone else I don't really recognize, you know, from other stuff. I'm sure there's other things, you know, they've been in. I'll have to look into that actually. But yeah, it's a fun movie. This is like my kind of thing to watch for like Halloween, of like having the spooky vibes, but it's not like scary or whatever. I mean, it fits with Halloween of like they literally kill and eat a guy, and you know, they're in this creepy castle or whatever, and there's like a Frankenstein kind of theming with everything, but it's not anything actually scary You know, it's kind of the same place I'd put like in terms of like perfect for Halloween, but not like horror. Of where I'd put like Paranorman or Coraline, which I watched last year, but I'm not gonna watch this year. Or like Phantom of the Opera isn't really like that scary either, but it's like very gothic and stuff, so it fits, you know. So that one I'm gonna have to watch. Bram Stoker's Dracula is also good. That one I'd count as horror, but I watched it like a couple months ago, so I think I'm good. Whatever the other one I mentioned earlier. Damn, I don't remember. But anyway, yeah, that's it on Rocky Horror. I know this is like an hour. I didn't mean to like drag it out. I just was trying to make sure I wasn't forgetting anything. And I probably did. I don't know. But yeah, this is one I'd love to go see performed like live or something where everyone else is like also hyped to see it. I don't know if I'll ever get that chance, but we'll see. Yeah, so I'm gonna go watch Shock Treatment. It'll be interesting to maybe give my thoughts. Depends if I like it or not. I think that's why, I mean, I'm trying to watch it the same day as Rocky Horror, but you know, in terms of watching and recording and stuff. But I'm glad I'm doing it like not back to back, because it is so easy to try to compare them, but they're like completely, you know, different entities. They're supposed to be just as weird as each other, but we'll see, because that one I've only seen once. But this one, I love it. I will continue to watch it every single year in Halloween until my DVD just stops functioning. Basically, and it's nice to watch on DVD as well. I feel like it just kind of fits more. I don't know. All right, bye.